This is a Think Live Be production.
3, 2, 1. Seeking the best, seeking the best.
Good morning.
Good morning. I didn't know we were going to use our new intro.
Yeah.
That was an exciting little surprise.
Mm-hmm. For all of our longtime listeners, they were just startled.
They were like, wait, this isn't the right podcast.
We got to get things moving.
It's a high energy.
It's a high energy rockin' new theme song.
Yeah, that you created.
Yeah, we got big things in the works, and so have to change some things. And one of the things was the theme. So we've got some other stuff coming up in the coming weeks that you guys will be excited about, that we're excited about, but we're not going to get into that today.
No, but that was, I was like, oh, it's happening. Well, yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm still like kind of in shock, and I forgot what I was going to say. It caught me off guard. Well, anyways, you're listening to Seeking the Best. This is our podcast. And yes, that's a new intro. This podcast is all about seeking your best, figuring out how to overcome the hurdles and challenges that are and exist in the real estate industry.
Yes.
Because it's not easy out there. I've been doing this. So my name is Catherine Stelgis. If you're a first-time listener, I am a realtor in Orlando, Florida, and I've been doing this for 18 years somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my significant other, husband.
Yes.
And he's been with me the whole time.
Yep. Even before,
yeah. And he's not actually in the real estate industry. He just does lots of stuff for us and like graphic design. What else do you do? Video, photography.
Anything marketing, branding wise for the team that needs to happen, and all real estate photos and video.
Yes.
And we kind of discuss everything that needs to happen on the team, and we just bounce all of those things off of each other.
Yeah.
And then Catherine implements the team stuff, and I'm more behind the scenes.
Yeah. He doesn't interact with the team. He's just here.
Right. That's and if today is your first day, you'll soon see why.
No.
What is it that he says in what's his name? Craig says in.
Oh, I'm happy with the decision I made and the people I fired.
Yeah, it's from Parks and Rec. Tom Haverford puts him in charge for 10 seconds.
Yeah, he's in charge for 10 seconds. And he comes back and says, oh, never mind. I don't need you to be in charge. Yeah. And he says, well, I'm happy with the decisions I made and the people I fired. That's what Pat would do if I put him in charge.
No, not necessarily, but
he'd shake things up.
There'd definitely be a little kicks in the butts for some people.
So Pat is my husband. And so, of course, I come home, I talk to him. Oh, I feel like all we do is talk about real estate because it has been such a huge part of our life. Like after selling real estate for many, many years as a single agent, and then starting to grow a team and figuring all of that out. And well, trying to, let's put it that way. And then buying rental properties. And then our most recent venture was a short-term rental.
Yeah,
so,
an Airbnb.
Yeah, Airbnb. And so we're just enveloped in this industry. Yeah. And so he's, although not a realtor and hasn't ever sold a house, might as well have.
Yeah.
Because he's got plenty of thoughts and opinions on it.
Well, compared to a lot of agents, they're only a couple houses ahead of me.
I know. But we talk about, like, we talk about it so often that we started the podcast because we're like, we're talking about this anyways. We might as well record it and, share thoughts and insights.
Might as well.
And come up with some ideas along the way.
Yeah, that's really the best part for us. It's nice to get it, to be able to vent a little bit, get it all out and stuff. But talking things through in a platform like this really makes you think about things and nothing else for at least this hour.
Yeah.
Right. So you can kind of get new ideas and new thoughts, and we have implemented lots of things
and
that have come up on this show.
I hope our listeners experience the same thing where
Yeah.
they're like, hey, that sentence just made me think of this and I should do this. That's a good idea, but you know what would be better? I hope you come up with something better from listening. That is our goal, is that you guys take stuff and run with it and come up with even better ideas. And real estate is such a lonely industry.
It really is.
Like
it really, really is.
You get this license. Nobody really tells you what this business is. You think you're going to go show pretty houses and be swimming in money.
Well, and you just and you don't realize it's like it is very solitary. Like you're driving in the car by yourself to for appointments and stuff, and you're working in your office alone, or if you have a home office alone, and even on a team, you're still doing working individually, and then you get to meet people, sure. And have conversations with people, but within 6 weeks they're out of your life, at least on a daily basis. They should never actually be out of your life, but
clients for life.
Yeah,
but
and you can be on the phone and doing your lead gen every morning and all of that, but it's not the same thing. It's like you really are solitary on it.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough.
And so these are the kind of places you can go, and it's like we're all talking it out. We're all trying to figure out the best methods to do things. And so anyways, we started recording this in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, and been going strong ever since.
Don't go listen to those episodes.
Those are those are
rough.
I think the first one we were all gung ho about something, and then by the next week, couldn't even do it.
Yeah, it was FSBOs.
Yeah, I was gonna go door knocking some FSBOs,
and we were
gonna
make the whole podcast, kind of the whole first season, about like the evolution of doing the steps for FSBOs. And 1 week in, the people started to get sick in China, and
we were shut down.
And then we were shut down, and the FSBO thing just couldn't happen. So we had to shift, and we never went back.
Yeah.
How are those FSBOs working out now?
Well, don't worry about it.
Okay, let's move on.
Moving on. Speaking of, like, at that time, I was looking for a new lead generation strategy, and not new as in like some brand new idea.
Invention.
The reality is that when you go out to lead generate, you will find that there are just a few things that can cause real estate business. That's just all there is to it. It's like people always want this magic pill, but at the end of the day, it's FSBOs, expireds, sphere. Yes, you can door knock and farm. That farming and door knocking are really the same thing to me. It's just door knocking as part of farming. Yes, you can do internet ads. There's other things, but what it really all comes down to is like a core, probably like 5 to 10 strategies that you need to then build out, or I should say 5 to 10 like lead generation methods, and then you've got to build a strategy around how you're going to do that. And at that time, I was looking to add more listings, aren't we all? Always. and I was going to bring back in FSBOs, because I've done FSBOs before, but not consistently with a strategic approach. And so that was the plan. It was going to be my one thing that I was going to focus on. And then, like pandemic happened. I didn't get back to it. But the one thing is that thing that always comes back to me. There's a book, if you haven't read it, called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And it's just all about understanding what your priorities are and what's the most important thing that you should be working on. And I think that that's the hardest thing to figure out as a realtor, even though it could be as simple as, well, you just need to make enough contacts in the day. That's really truly the simplest answer. But we can get so tied up in all of the other stuff and think that every day, this is my one thing, this is my one thing. And so I guess I just wanted to talk about that and how to better understand what is truly the most important priority, and then how to keep that at the forefront of every day.
I think it's probably difficult for a newer agent, or even an experienced agent, when you don't know what you're doing every day or when you don't really understand how things are interconnected, what the career is, what the job is, everything seems important. Everything needs to happen right now. Oh, I need to call this guy back. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, these people want. It's all important, and really, it takes some level-headedness and some experience to be able to know what your one thing is and then stay focused on just that. Because when you don't know what you're doing, everything seems important and seems like I need to do it right now.
For sure. And the other thing, when you talk about like a brand new agent gets their license, you might take a training class for the first couple of weeks. Maybe the training class that you're in is the one thing. Like if you just do that and do the activities that are in there, you're probably on the right track, because at least you're going to learn some basic skills necessary. But then you finish up your first training class and you're like, now what? Like, what am I supposed to do? Nobody's there. That's what I mean. It's so lonely. Nobody's there to tell you what to do every day.
Right. You might have a mentor or something, but the mentor is trying to do their own business.
Well, generally,
right? And then you might have like, you guys have like Keller Williams has Ignite.
Well, that's what I mean
right.
about the training class. So you go take a class like Ignite is what Keller Williams calls it. And you're in the class, and then every time you're in the class, you know what you're supposed to be doing, because they're going to give you activities and stuff. But as soon as that's done and you're no longer in that environment and you're on your own,
you wake up
and
Monday morning,
and you wanted this in your life. You thought, I want to own my own business. I want to be, able to not report to a boss. I'm on my own thing, right? So you wanted this, and you wake up that following Monday morning and say, what am I supposed to do? And you have nobody to call because you don't have any leads.
Right.
And you don't have any idea what to do. And then, so what you get wrapped up in.
They all tell you the same thing. Go build a sphere. And you're like, or a database.
Well, and
like,
hopefully.
oh, okay.
Well, and hopefully through your Ignite course or whatever course at your brokerage to get you started, hopefully they've gotten you on the right path to building your sphere, but you should already be done building it during that training program. So on that next Monday morning, you should have already called all those people that you put into your sphere. So who you're going to call now?
I had a knee-jerk reaction to say Ghostbusters.
I know. I could see it all over your face.
I couldn't help it.
But I mean, it's truly, and you're alone, and so then you get on Reddit or Facebook and like, hey, I got $500 to spend. Where should I spend it? How can I get some leads?
We saw that question the other day about that $500.
Yeah.
What should I spend it on for marketing? It's like, just put it in the bank, because $500 isn't going to get you anything. It's going to be a waste of money. You can't buy anything for $500 that's going to help you. You just can't. Buy business cards and put the rest of it in the bank and wait for a rainy day, because you'll need it somewhere down the road. Do not spend $5 if that's all you've got. That's insane.
It's not enough to do anything with and to like consistently do anything with. What you need
that's the point.
What you have to do is build
all of this stuff. Everything is consistency. It's doing the same thing over and over and over again for years and years, to where you build up a pipeline and a business. $500 isn't going to do anything. It can't, because it can't withstand. That's 1 month of something. That's not the way this works. It's month after month after month, year after year after year, over and over and over and over again. You could use that $500 for one touch, but you need to touch your sphere. What is it? 20 something times?
40 something.
40 something.
It used to be 33.
Right. 40 something times a year. So, you know what I mean? It's like that $500 you could use as a reverse bold or some sort of raffle or some sort of something as one touch. So, which doesn't make sense to spend that $500, save it for a rainy day.
Well, so you need to be able to save enough money where you can do something consistently over 12 months. I feel like it used to be 6 months, but now I feel like it's 12 months, because
people are bombarded.
You have to break through all of the noise.
You have to break through their emails, their text messages, their direct messages, their phone calls, their did I say text message?
I
Their
think so.
text messages, their regular mail. Like you have to break through all of that stuff. So it's way more than it used to be, when the only way that you communicated with people was with a letter in the mail or a landline call.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's like it's social media. There's just so much.
If I think about like, we're kind of getting down a rabbit hole here, but if I think about like, where would you spend $500? And I'm like, okay, somebody would maybe say they're going to go mail out postcards. That's going to be like one batch of postcards to one neighborhood.
Right.
And it's like, just think for a moment. Like, what do you think that you're going to send out 500 postcards one time and somebody's going to be like,
well, we know the numbers.
oh my God, thank goodness this person I've never heard of before sent me
Right.
this postcard today because I'm ready to sell my house.
Right.
Like, come list me.
We know what the numbers are, how many postcards need to be sent out, how many times you have to, somebody needs to be touched with that, a not met person, somebody you don't know, how many times you have to touch them, and how many have to go out in order to get a response from somebody. And that we know that $500, which equals 500 postcards, is not enough. One set of 500 postcards. So if you do that, what you are doing is saying, maybe I'll get lucky.
Well,
and that's not how you run a business.
And same thing, like, okay, if you threw $500 into Facebook ads, you'd probably get leads. I mean, I know you'd get, I use the term leads loosely because you would
Right.
get registrations or inquiries or whatever you want to call them from Facebook. But you have to remember, internet leads are really long lead turnover times. So,
right. So you have to have
if you just spend $500 and think that you're going to randomly find one person that inquires that's ready to do business today,
yeah.
Again, you're just waiting for luck to happen instead of building a strategic plan.
Yeah, that process of doing those internet leads like that, you have to have in which you can build, but you have to have the infrastructure to stay in contact with those people for maybe 2 years before one of them is ready, right? You have to have the infrastructure set up in your smart plan to be able to continue to reach out to them, because they're not going to answer right away, to continue to reach out to them over the next 6 months until you get them on the phone. All of those things, if you don't have any of that, you're just kind of throwing out $500 worth of ads on Facebook, crossing your fingers. That's not how you run a business. So if that's your plan, hold on to the money until you have the infrastructure in place to be able to follow up properly for this for infinity amount of time, until otherwise you're just wasting the money.
Well, let's digress,
Yes.
because we didn't mean
This
to
wasn't
get on that.
this wasn't
That's not the
show.
topic.
No.
But yeah, sometimes we can get a little ranty. But seriously, one things, and I think at different stage, not I think I know, at different stages in your career, your one things are different. And what it can even vary day to day. It can vary week to week, month to month, but it shouldn't just be like you walk in that morning and say, today I'm going to do this. This is my one thing. So let me just pause for a moment and say, if my team members are listening, I'm going to tell on them. Well, yeah, I hope they're listening, but we do in the mornings, we do just a very quick, let's call it a stand-up meeting, where we just check in on what's our one thing for the day. And it's just meant to get you into action, like talking about, what's your goal, what's your plan.
Yeah, so it gives you something to point at right when you get started.
Yeah.
So that they don't sit there at 9 a.m. and go, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah. And it also, for me, it helps me to kind of know what everybody's priorities are for the day. And
helps you keep them on track too.
If they say something, sometimes I'll give them a hard time, because here's why I was bringing this up, is that it can feel like, this is where I'm saying I'm telling on them. It can feel like the one thing is something that they are pulling out of thin air as we're talking in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it could possibly be the most important priority, but a lot of times it feels like, I got to think of something real quick because Catherine just asked what's my one thing.
Like what?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't want to get.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that you don't have to get into that. But here's the deal. This is a super, if it was me, this would be a super easy thing to do every day, because you would say, what's your small thing today?
Not small thing.
What's your one thing? What's your one thing today? And I would say the same thing every single day. Get 10 contacts.
Well, so hold on. So if you're in sales, perhaps that is your one thing every day.
Yeah.
That is possibly and most likely your most important one thing every day.
Yeah. Because you could say, well, I want to get a listing appointment today. And it's like, okay, well, you don't have any control over whether you get a listing appointment today. Right. It's like you can make 10,000 calls today and there's no guarantee you're going to get a listing appointment.
Here's the thing.
I would want my, whatever my one thing is something that at the end of the day, I can say, I can check and go, I did that and I have control over it.
Here, I'll go ahead and tattletale on everybody. One of the things, and I give people a hard time, is when they say like, well, my one thing for the day is to take this appointment, like to take this person that they're already scheduled to meet with as a client. And I'll be like, now do you have control over that?
Right. Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting
and it's
at,
probably super annoying for them, but I don't care, because the point is a one thing is something that you have control and you can take action on.
Right.
And
it would be like saying,
you can't 100% control taking a client. Like, I've been doing this 18 years and I go into a listing appointment and I always, of course you want to take it in the room at that time, always. And I don't take 100%. No one does. And I don't mean I don't take 100%. Well, I mean it in two ways. I don't take 100% of the listing appointments I go on. No one does. And I don't take 100% of the people that I take. I don't take 100% of them in the room either.
Right.
No one does.
You can shoot for that, but yeah, you can't.
That's the goal. That's what the scripts, the dialogue, the practice, that's what you're working towards. But I don't have 100% control over those people. And if I go through and I do, they give me an objection and I do an objection handler and I do 5 closes and it's just not happening. They're the type of people that want to think on it, pray on it, sleep on it, whatever. And I've done my job and I can leave the room saying I've done everything that I can and they are just not signing the paper. Then maybe I get them on the follow-up call. But I don't have 100% control over who those people are and how they're going to react. And sometimes it's just not a match. Like sometimes you go on an appointment and they're just not a good fit for, like, we're not vibing. I can tell, like, if I go, sometimes I'll be like, nah, I don't think I'm going to get that.
Yeah, this is just isn't clicking.
For whatever reason, it's like, it's not that I'm not a great agent for the house or the situation. I know I am. And sometimes it's just not a fit.
Sometimes you just don't vibe with people.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's just true. But anyways, the one thing isn't always contacts, but if you're in sales, generally that should be something that shows up regularly. But it should be something that you have control and action. But the bigger point is that it needs to tie into the goal somehow. So I'm going to give my admin a hard time. And sometimes she'll say that her one thing is to go like get a lockbox. And I'm like, what?
Well, because in their mind, it's an actionable thing. It's a thing that I can say, I'm going to do this. And then at the end of the day say, hey, I did it. But
how does that tie?
It doesn't project. I'm sorry, that's not the right word. It doesn't catapult into the next.
It doesn't move the
business
forward.
It doesn't move the business forward. It's just a chore.
It's just a thing. It's like when did we talk about 80-20 recently? I talk so much. I don't even know.
No, we haven't talked to 80-20.
Who was I talking to recently?
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
No, I think we did.
Well,
okay. Sorry. This is like, was Phoebe there? Sorry, quote from something. Probably Parks and Rec. But anyways, I digress. The point is that it should, your one thing that your true one thing every single day that you're going to stop and make sure you focus on, and that's the only thing you're going to do. You're not going to do anything else until that one thing is done, because that one thing is what will move the business forward. It's the most important priority. That's how strong and important it is that I'm not going to do anything else until this thing is done. That's how strong it should be.
It's called the one thing. It's not the one thing if you feel like doing it. and you don't get busy.
Oh, that's the other thing is sometimes we'll be like, well, I got a lot of one things.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I have a lot of best friends.
but I sometimes feel that way too, is like I have one things in different categories, and that's okay too. In fact, in the One Thing book, there's I think there's 6.
I think that's perfectly fine.
There's 6 different categories.
But if
no,
you're
7.
But if you are a sales agent, like a buyer's agent on a team, you already have 5 things that's your job. Like, you don't have to worry about hiring. You don't have to worry about marketing. You don't have to worry about any of it. You only have 5 things to do.
Well,
So having one thing is easier to kind of pick out. You're a team owner, or you're building a team and you're doing hiring. Well, hiring is really important. Today, my one thing might be about hiring, whereas tomorrow my one thing might be about lead gen. That's fine.
Well, so for example, so the 7 circles of they're categories of your life that you would have goals around. And I'm going to read through them real quick. So physical health, personal life, key relationships, job, business, finances, spiritual life. Okay. Those are the categories of people's lives that they focus on, have goals around. So in a business setting, 2 of those are business related. One is job. Like, I have job duties. Even though I'm the business owner, I have job responsibilities within that business. And then my business, I guess you could say my finances too for the business. So I have goals around each of those things. So when I show up to work, though, my one thing is either about my job or the business. And I don't need to say like my one thing for the day is to work out. That might be personally one of the most important things to do. But when you're talking about your job, it's like, okay, what are your job goals? So think about if you're in sales.
So what you're saying is you can have multiple one things in the day because you're a human being who has things outside of their career. So you can have a one thing about your personal life and also have your one thing be lead generation. That's what you mean by you can have multiple one things.
Yeah, but
not
within one category, there can only really be one thing that is the most important for you to get done in the day. That if you did nothing else, I love the way they word this question, where it's what's the one thing such that by doing it, everything else is either. Wait, I just messed it up.
No.
It's too early. I'm gonna find the question. I'm gonna read it word for word because it's
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break because it's break time, and you can find that. Okay.
Okay. It's called the focusing question, and when we come back from break, I'll read it.
Okay. All right. Let's take a break.
Okay.
The Think Live Be team is an Orlando-based real estate team with Keller Williams Realty at the Parks. We operate as a boutique-style company with the resources of the largest real estate company behind us. Think Live Be is looking for talented people like you to join our team. If you happen to live in the Orlando area and you're a detail-oriented quick learner, then we might have a place for you. Whether you're a real estate agent or administrative professional, we are looking for individuals who are ready to work hard and ready for success. If you're ready to join the team, visit us at thinklivebe.com.
And we're back.
Okay. So I bungled that, but the focusing question, the powerful question to find out what your one thing is what's the one thing, and then insert, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. So if you think about your goals in business and in your job, what can you do that if you just did that one thing, everything else would become easier to handle or unnecessary? And so in sales, because obviously this is a real estate podcast, in sales, it comes down to conversations with people. That's why Pat says it's 10 or 15 or 20 contacts, whatever your contact goal is, right? That's the easiest thing, because if you just do that, if you just make your contact goal every day and you do nothing else until that's done, everything else would be easier, right? You'd have more appointments. You'd reach the other goals. You might have to do less things like open houses and things like that. If you just now open houses lead to contacts, but I'm just saying everything else would become easier because you'd have multiple appointments set. Your life would be easier. Finances would be easier. Everything else would fall into place if you just did that every single day consistently.
Yeah, it's why we block out the whole morning to do it every single day. That's the whole point.
But it's
like, I don't understand how somebody, I'm not talking about people that aren't salespeople, but I don't understand how how you could wake up in the morning and say anything but making contacts would be your one thing, because you don't have control over, I'm going to get a appointment today, I'm going to do this today. Like, you don't have any control over those things. So that's like a quarterback's one thing being, I'm going to win the game, we're going to win today. It's like, you don't have control over the win. You don't have control over any of that.
I think what happens is, truly, because I probably feel this way sometimes too, is that I don't know, it feels weird to say the same thing over and over again. So you try to come up with something new.
Right. But unfortunately,
but that's the thing with this business. It's lonely.
Yeah.
And truly, if you're doing it right, it's kind of boring.
It's kind of boring. Yeah.
Now it can get interesting with if you do the one thing.
After lunch.
Pat's always like this after lunch. And we did talk about 80-20. We talked about the 20% activity. It can be interesting and exciting, but the one thing activities are usually the boring ones that you are like, yeah, I'll get to that. But it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's the one thing. So in the book, that focusing question, they talk about, great questions lead to great answers. And so in order to determine what are your one things in those categories of your life, you have to really ask those big questions and make them really specific. So in the book, they have an example of like, I'm going to read through them because I think it's a really good example. It's like, a broad question would be something like, what can I do to double sales? Or what can I do to increase sales? So what can I do to increase sale is small and broad, because it's just like, what can I do to increase sales? You didn't even specify a number. Like, how much do you want to increase sales? Like,
right, increase
by when?
Or compared to what?
Right, exactly. And then what can I do to double sales is broad and big, because that's doubling sales would be a difficult stretch goal. But then you get really the point is get specific. Like, what is the most important? Really hunker down on this. And then you do, what can I do to increase sales by 5% this year? Well, that's a small and specific goal, because again, you're talking about increasing sales, but at least you're saying by a specific amount. But then big and specific would be, what can I do to double sales in 6 months? And if you ask yourself those kinds of questions, then you're going to get a big answer that then becomes the one thing. So what could I do to double sales in 6 months?
I have to double the number of contacts that I make.
And then how can I do that? I
don't know. It all depends on...
Well, it depends on what your strategy is.
It all depends on your particular strategy. But it does all come down to the same thing, which is, I probably would need more sources to get in front of people.
Yeah, maybe I need to do twice as many open house. Maybe if I'm doing really well with open house leads and I want to double my sales. So I'm doing good with open house leads. I'm hitting my basic goals, but I want to double my sales over 6 months. Well, I could do twice as many open houses. And so what would be my one thing would be to find twice as many open houses every day.
It means that I have to still do my lead gen, my normal lead gen that I would do in the morning, and then block out another 2 hours, however much time I spend looking for open houses. If I don't have the listings myself, then I have to spend that time calling other agents, emailing other agents, following up with other agents for open houses.
Well, it's like this, what you're talking about is, yes, you have to still do the lead generation because that's actually the sales part. But in order to
you never let anything else get in the way of calling your sphere in the mornings or following up with the open house leads. Ever, never, ever, never, ever. Not looking for other, you saying, well, I'm calling this other agent because if I can get a hold of this agent, then I can get the open house from them. And then once I get the open house, then that's an opportunity to meet more people. So that's technically that's lead gen. No, it isn't, because that agent, you could do all of that, and the agent goes, oh, you know what? We went under contract. We're canceling the open house. Now you didn't do the lead gen that you were supposed to do, and you don't have the open house.
Yeah, you know what? You make a really good point that then it all comes back to
you have no control over that kind of stuff. So it's not lead gen. Lead gen you have control over. I can pick up the phone and dial. Nobody is going, and until I talk to 10 people, there's nothing or anybody that can get in your way of that. That's something that you can accomplish every single day. You saying I'm going to get an open house from an agent today is not a one thing, because you don't have control over it.
So you're proving the point that that's actually not the one thing. So it comes back to, how do you double your sales? That's a big question. And the answer is to increase your conversations.
Right.
Now you have to do other activities, but that's after lunch work.
Right.
Because what you're doing is if you replace, let's say you say, in order to double my open houses, I need to call agents for 1 hour asking for open house, text, email, call, looking for
Follow
opportunities
up. Yeah.
in order to double my open houses. And so you replace 1 hour of lead generation. And so you have a bunch of overdue tasks, and you didn't follow up with the people that you met last week because you were doing that instead. You will actually decrease your sales over time.
Right.
Not double them.
Right. Because those open houses are going to get canceled. They're not going to be successful. There's all sorts of things that could happen. You're trying to double. You don't take away from other things.
You can't take away from
you have to add
the stuff that's working.
Right.
You have to add. Yeah. I think that's what you're getting at is, so what's the one thing? The one thing still boils down to
what I said. Make your contacts in the morning.
But
if you're making
truly,
10 contacts in the morning, and that seems to be working, and your open houses don't work as well, you don't have the follow-up systems in place to be able to do it the way you need to, then instead of 10 contacts a day, you've got to make 20.
Yeah. Well, that happens with market shifts too, is, and they say in the MREA book, like, never stop lead generating. Even if you think you have enough leads, never say like, oh, I can't handle any more calls. I can't handle any more leads. Like, you have to keep up with that thing, because, you never know when a market's going to shift. You never know when the leads are going to dry up, and you'll be glad that you continued. And yes, it's hard to keep focused on that one thing because you are being pulled in other directions.
Yeah.
And other things can feel more priority, but they're not.
And people, and it's like, you hear all of this stuff, like, I don't want to be salesy and I don't know what to say and all of that stuff. The reason why you feel that way, and the reason why you don't know what to say, and you feel salesy and you feel pushy and you feel all of those things, is because you don't do it enough. If you did it enough, it would become second nature to you, and those calls wouldn't matter. And when it comes to your sphere, there's no excuse, because that sphere are people that you directly know, and they will do anything to help you out. Because if the roles were reversed and they were calling you, you would do anything to help them out, because that's what people do. Because we're human beings. So when people are like, "Oh, I don't want to call," they don't have any money,
Okay,
and blah blah blah.
you're getting ranty.
Sorry. It's like those people are. It's like you should be looking forward. I understand, like, calling the open house leads from 2 weeks ago, and they're not going to answer, and they might not remember me, and I can see that like, oh, I don't want to do that, like, totally. But when it comes to your sphere, it's like you should be looking forward to those calls. Because it's like, those are all people that that's your street team.
Yeah. Well, so there are different stages though, where if as a single agent, you're the salesperson, you're the engine of your business, that has to be the priority. That has to be your one thing for your job and your business, because without contacts, you can't set appointments, and without appointments, you can't have clients, and without clients, you don't have sales. So you have to work that backwards and focus on that. But as time progresses and you start to grow a team, your role shifts, and you do have other priorities. See, there's those 7 circles, and one of them is finances and one of them is business. Mm-hmm. Now, finances can mean your personal finances. So do you have two,
when you do your one thing, do you actually have, because we were talking about how you can have multiple one things in a day. So you would have your one thing as an agent, because you're still an agent. but you also have your one thing for the business.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I do.
Is that
That's why when we say like we have
like, I don't know which one to do.
Well, that's why I've tried over time to have days that are focused around the other part of it is like I'm a business owner. And so in order to grow the business other than sales, which is my job, as the business owner, in order to grow, I have to be doing recruiting and hiring and training and talent search. And that is one part of that they do not like. No one tells you how time consuming that is. Yeah. That might be one of the great lies of the real estate industry. No, I think actually the worst lie of the real estate industry is that it's easy and that you're going to get into it and you're going to realize that it's not what you thought it was. But then as you grow and you're like, okay, well now I'm a good salesperson. I pushed through, I figured out how to actually sell real estate. But in order to take it to the next level, I have to have other people working with me. Then you become a manager of people. And that's a different set of skills. It's a different personality type than selling houses. It just is. And so like you all of a sudden you have two, they're working together because they both grow the business. If you do more sales, great. If you hire more people, great, because that should produce more sales. So they both serve the same purpose in terms of growth, but they require two sets of activities. One is lead generating for agents or support staff, and one is lead generating for sellers and buyers. And so I've tried, like, in order to fit that into my schedule, I've tried to designate a certain day of the week where it's like my one thing on this day is focusing on looking for new agents. I don't mean brand new agents. I just mean agents for the team.
Hiring, just in general.
Hiring.
It's not even just agents. Sometimes it's admin.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
my one thing for that day of the week is hiring. And if I do that, then at least I'm focused. I'm not giving the same amount of attention as the sales because I'm still the number one salesperson on the team.
Without those sales, you can't do the hiring.
Right. Like it's sort of this catch-22 situation. So you just have to build in a little bit of time to dedicate to that other one thing of the business.
And
then over time, like as you bring in people and they start to produce sales and replace your sales, then you can continue to move more towards just being a business owner, and your one thing becomes just that. And you don't have these two things that are pulling at you.
Right. And then because you own your own business, this goes to everybody who's listening, you own your own business. So there's a lot of business stuff besides hiring that you have to do, which can feel like that should be your one thing. And it can be. But guess what? That one thing happens on Saturdays and Sundays because you decided to own a business and go into business for yourself. So you don't get any time off until you do, but you don't take, I guess my point is that if you wanted a 9-to-5 job where you could just turn it off at 5:00, you need to go get an office job somewhere where you're allowed to do that. But when you decide that I'm going to run my own business, people decide they're going to open up their own restaurant. They don't say, well, I'm going to work 40 hours a week and that's it. You work 60 hours a week on average. That's just the way it is.
Well,
until you have enough in that restaurant's doing well enough that you can hire a general manager who's going to,
that was going to be my next point
and stuff. But unfortunately, if you're just starting out, be prepared to work 60, 70 hours a week, every single week until you build your business. It's just called paying your dues.
I think it's probably more than that, but
yes, it is. It is.
But yes, I mean, it's not just paying your dues. It's that you are over time replacing yourself.
Yeah.
If you're growing a business, you're over time replacing yourself with different roles. So that's what I was saying. Like at different stages, there might be different one things, but when you're still in sales, your one thing when you get up in the morning is still to go find conversations to have,
right,
to build real estate sales.
Real easy to wake up and go, I'm going to get on Canva today and do build some ads and some social media graphics. right? And it's 9 a.m. and you're going to open up your laptop with your coffee. And it's like, if that's what you're thinking you're going to do on a Tuesday morning, and it's not a dedicated day for whatever, which it shouldn't be because you're a single agent, then you're already making a mistake. But eventually you can get to a point where you can hire somebody to do those ads for you, because what your day isn't going to change is the number of contacts you have to make between 9 and noon.
Well, you know what I was going to say though? So this is going to be maybe slightly off what the normal traditional thought process is. And just hear me out for a moment.
All right.
So we have a sleep number bed, and I can go in every morning and see how well I slept. And it also gives me other data and information. And it tells me when I'll probably be most productive. Mm-hmm. I think it's called most alert I want to look it up. And it will give it actually only tells me a 1 hour time frame, which I think is really funny. Yeah. Most alert.
Yeah. You got 1 hour.
You got 1 hour.
Make it count, baby.
It's never told me more than 1 hour. However, my point in this is that it is good insight to know that between the hour of 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. is what it tells me every single day, that's my most alert, most productive hour. That's good to know. I should not be doing some of the things that I put into that time frame. I probably shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that gets tucked into there is role play, script and role play.
Yeah.
That should actually be done before, because if I'm most alert and most productive between 9 to 10, that's when I should be making as many calls as I can and doing as many contacts as I can between that 1 hour. Because I mean, I'm not that efficient that I could make my full day of contacts in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. However, if I could just focus on during 9 to 10, do as many as I possibly can.
Yeah, script and role play is a necessary thing.
Yeah, it warms you up.
It has
you should do it.
It's something that should be done. But if I had to choose, I would say start making if you don't have time in the morning, like first thing, because whatever happened, the coffee machine broke and you had to fix it and it leaked everywhere, or whatever it happens to be.
That sounds like an excuse.
Well, my point, I'm saying, then you just don't do your scripts and role play. You do the calls. You always do the calls. Always. You can do script and role play later on in the day with somebody else. You can schedule it for the whole point. I understand getting warm, but
my point in this was not that at all.
Well,
what you're talking.
What was
the
it?
point is that script and role play should happen before 9 a.m.
Oh, well, yeah.
And it doesn't on our schedule. And that's honestly because I don't want to say I'll keep that in. No, I'll say it. I think that I have been afraid to schedule anything before 9 because I think that like other team members that have been around now, I'm not talking about my current team, but over the years of people in and out.
We're always, by the way, unless Catherine specifically says something about something that a team member said, we're always talking about people from the past. I think it's happened a couple times today. In fact, you said, I'm going to call them out.
Well, I might have been calling out some current team members.
When she said, that's what I mean. When she says I'm going to call them out, it's because it's current. But most of the time, we're talking about people from the past.
But I've been, afraid is not the right word, but sometimes
hesitant.
Hesitant. Like sometimes as a leader, I can say this, and it's also something I've learned I need to stop doing, is that as a leader, I can sometimes make schedules and plan things because I think that's what people want. And so I don't think people, I've felt like people think 8:30 or 8 is too early. And I don't want to deter people that I think are talented from joining the team. So I'd make my schedule based on what I think would be agreeable. Mm-hmm. That's a terrible way to lead. I'm not perfect.
I understand though.
I've come a long way, and it's all this learning process. But I bring that up to say that, you have to think about this kind of stuff, because I don't think I've also looked at Pat's sleep score because I can see, because we're our family thing. So
stalker.
I look at his too, and it says the same time frame. So I'm convinced.
When do I start working in the morning?
Oh, you're like after you have
what
your
time am I sitting at the computer starting
It's
work?
probably like 7:30.
Yeah, 7:30 in the morning, because I know that that's when I'm productive. No one's going to bother me. I can sit down and I can work, and I work my butt off until noon, and then I take a really long break, and then I do a few more hours of work, in the afternoon, and I worked a really strong 8-hour day.
Well, I think though, like yours says pretty much the same time frame.
Uh-huh.
And yet we don't have the same sleep score or anything. You know what I mean? So I bet that most people are most productive from 9 to 10. Even the people who say, I'm not a morning person. Well, that's not the morning. The morning is like 6 a.m. But my point is if we're all pretty much most productive between 9 and 10, then we have to get the practice, the warm up, the stand-up meetings, the things that like get your list prepped, all of the stuff that you need to be productive, to set the environment up, has to happen before that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had talking about other people that used to be on the team, be in the office at 9 doesn't mean come into the office 9:05, make yourself a cup of coffee, check the email, say hello to this person and that person, and then put your list together, then decide you're going to start calling. And now all of a sudden your first call is at 10:15.
Well, so what
it's
I
like
found,
that first call should have been at 8:50.
So what I found through hiring people is that you've got people that are always on time. And what I mean by that is that they're early. And then you have people that are always late. And the people who are always early, and I was joking when I said they're on time, they're always early. Those are the people, and I don't know how to exactly make sure that you're hiring those people, but those are the best people to hire because they're already prepped and ready. Like they come in early because they know, just like they know I'm going to need to use the restroom. I need to get settled. I need to get settled in before I can start my day. And that takes a few minutes, right? You want to write out a little to-do list and like think about things before you just all of a sudden it's 9 a.m. and it's time to get started, or 8:30 or whatever time you start your productive work. There's probably 15 to 30 minutes before that that's really truly needed. And so what happens is if you show up late, 9 to 9:30 is that time. You sit down, you're starting to figure out who I'm going to call, and you're doing all this prep work. And so you're not actually getting into action until you're halfway through your most alert, productive time frame.
Right. And you make 4 calls, and then I need to get a glass of water, and I have to go to the bathroom again because I had that coffee, right? And it's like all of a sudden, well, how many contacts did you make? 4. And now I have now I have to go do this thing with this buyer. Right. And it's like, well, I didn't make 10 contacts. And it's like, well, of course you didn't. Of course you didn't. So.
Yeah. And again, if contacts aren't your one thing, because obviously there's lots of roles in the real estate industry.
Right.
So
if you're an admin.
If you're an admin. So one of my admins, one of the goals that's hers is because it helps move the business forward in her role is reviews.
Getting reviews.
Getting
from past
reviews.
Clients.
Now, do you have control over whether somebody is ready to write a review today? No. The only thing you have control over is how many review requests you put out there,
which are contacts.
And then over time, you can kind of know like how many times do I have to reach out to people before they finally.
So it sounds like something like that would be contacts as well.
Well, yeah, but it's it's worded a little bit differently. Is like I'm going to send X review requests, and you can even be specific because it's like to these people. Yeah.
It is slightly different, but it's still in the same world.
And then here's what happens, and
but it could be like I'm going to finish this project today.
Of course.
I know I've got 6 hours left on it, and I know I can do it. I'm not going to let anything else get in my way of finishing this project, whatever it happens to be. That they can have those things as one thing. So there's that as an admin, you're doing lots of different things, and the business is always changing and it's evolving, and we're adding things. So your one thing is going to change day to day, but as a buyer's agent, as an agent on the team, your job doesn't change. It's the same job forever. You have to come to terms with that. As long as if you've got 5 things to do, The most important one is lead gen, and that's it every single day. Your afternoons will change into different things and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change. So with admins, it can kind of be all over the place.
It can, because they're more project based.
Yeah.
And even things that seem like, sometimes I'll give people a hard time too, because I'll be like, that's just your job. But what I mean by that is that's just like one of those things that has to happen, but it's not really like, how does that move the business forward? But there are project things, like we have an upcoming ice cream social. It's our client appreciation party for the summer. And in order for that event to happen and it to be a successful event, there is a checklist of items that has to happen. So yes, some of those things are just like tasks that you check off. However, it is super important that all of that stuff get done. And so your one thing for the day could be one of those chunks of things from that project.
Yeah. It's different because it is a mix. It is your job. And you're paying them, like they get a check at the end of the week for their work. Whereas with agents, you have to generate the sales. They have to generate sales
Or convert.
Right. So
most of the time it's just converting.
Or converting and stuff. So it is a different thing when it comes to your one thing as an admin, because it's kind of funny. You say, well, you're just doing your job. And it's like, but that is what you're paying them for, is to do their job. So it's like, if you are doing your job, what I'm paying you for, and you are getting the things done correctly and on time, then we don't have a problem here. Right. And it's like, and then that is kind of the whole point, because that's an admin. I was thinking more along the lines of like a transaction coordinator. Like, I'm paying you to do this job. Your job is to do the job without any mistakes and do everything on time. That's your job. That's
100%. But that's what I mean, is the difference between, well, I'm going to get this file started today. That's my one thing. And it's like, well, that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. The one thing though is what if you're using some sort of goal setting tool, like we use the 411. So it stands for 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. So you write out annual goals, personal and business, and then you break them down each month. And then what has to happen this week in order to achieve the goal that I set for the month, which if I do the goal for the month, it achieves the annual goal.
Right.
So if reviews, let's say I'm just making up numbers. The annual goal is to have 50 new reviews. Well, so then this month we need to have whatever the 6? No.
4.
No. Oh, it's too early. Doesn't matter.
It's 3.5 or something.
Then that's how many reviews that have to happen for the month, and then how many requests need to go out to obtain that many reviews.
Right.
Because remember, that's the action part.
That's the part you can control.
That's what you're doing this week. So when you say my one thing is to make X number of review requests, then at that first most alert moment after the stand-up meeting, and you got there early and you checked in and you did all the things and we did the stand-up meeting, and then the one thing, sit down, make those review requests, then you move on to your day-to-day tasks,
right,
which is start a new file, check in on old files. And
then when you look back on the day, it's like, God, I feel like I didn't do anything today. How many times do people say that?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh no, I did my one thing. That was hours ago. I forgot. I did get stuff done today.
That's where actually, if you do this consistently, like, you really can feel very accomplished. Like I have days when I come home and I feel like, okay, I can really turn off my phone and shut down for the day. It's because I accomplished the one most important thing.
Oh, really? That's because I've noticed that. Sometimes you come home and you're like, oh, and then other times you come home and you're like, I am done for the day.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And that's probably why I get up and the time I get up and start working at 7, because I know that if I just sit here at 7 a.m. and I work until noon, that even if the rest of my day gets thrown out because, oh man, I have to go get dog food, I totally forgot about that, or there's an appointment or something like that, I already did the stuff that I said I was going to have done. It's already done.
Yeah.
So then I can do then anything can happen. That having that safety of that makes my life way less stressful than it would be if I decided I was going to run to Target first thing in the morning and go run those errands and then said, I'm going to do that other stuff later. That is not how I would want to live at all.
I think that what we're describing, like I've never really thought too much about it until now when we're having this conversation, but yeah, you can really decompress at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that is because you truly get up and do your one thing, first thing, no interruptions, and finish it. And if we all could learn that discipline, like you're much more disciplined than I am, and build that habit where I'm just not going to let anything else bother me. But what happens is, and I'm going to use this.
I don't know how many people out there have Macs. I've got a Mac, and there's a thing at the top. I'm sure the regular PCs have this too, that just says do not disturb, and it's automatic, and it comes on at 6 a.m. and then it turns off at noon. You've seen we've been sitting in the living room and you hear my computer bang really loud when we're watching TV or something. That's the emails coming through and stuff. So if I was sitting here, those emails would be coming through and I'd be able to see them and stuff. Everything is turned off.
Can I tell you? So what you're describing is like setting your environment up for success. And I will say in sales, so here's what happens. And I know some people here's what happens. Our one thing is usually on our phone, right? It's making calls. And so we need our phone on because we're making calls. And if somebody calls us back that was a lead, well, then we want to answer the phone.
Right.
Well, so then what happens is we answer the phone and it's not a sales return call. It's, oh, can I show this property or whatever? And you're off doing other things. And I do know there are people who have two separate phones, like whether it's a business like desk phone that they use to call from, or they have two separate cell phones. And so that's a way to separate yourself from the day-to-day business so that you could just focus on lead gen. I've never personally done that. I do have different phone lines. And that can help too. If you have one designated line that's for your outgoing lead calls, then when it rings back in, well, then you know it's a return call for that. Versus if your other number rings and that's what you use on your MLS and agent facing stuff, then you know that that's probably day-to-day business that you try to wait until the after lunch, unless you have an admin who can then answer those calls for you in the morning and take care of that business so that you don't have to do anything with it, even when you're done with your lead gen. But you do have to, in order to, once you figure out what is my one thing, where you are in your business, what is that most important thing and how are you going to achieve it, then it's this bunker that you have to create or you will get distracted.
Yeah, there is on your phone. Catherine uses like she said, multiple numbers, so it wouldn't necessarily work for you. But if you have an iPhone, there's a button on there called Focus, and you can go into the settings and go to Focus, and then you can set it up for work. And you can let certain people through. So like your parents, because if your parents call at 9 a.m., there's probably a reason, right? So, and you need to answer that phone or whatever it is. You can let certain people break through the focus time and stuff, but you can set it up so that none of those calls come through. None of the text messages come through. Nothing comes through. And you just make your calls and do your thing. And then after the focus time is turned off and you can schedule it for whatever time you want, then you'll get the emails and you'll get the text messages and the calls will come through. You can do it. You can set it up that way if you want to. That's what I've done and it works very, very well. I will check my email first thing in the morning and be like, I've got to do, somebody needs this and I need to do that and I need to do that. But that does not happen until my one thing, whatever that happens to be that day, is done. I won't email them back. I won't do any of that until it's finished.
Yeah, I want to read this out loud. So this is from the One Thing book. It's called Goal Setting to the Now is what it's called. And
Okay.
it's literally just, so we talk about contacts every day, but what is the purpose of the contacts? So that you can get a certain number of sales. Well, what's my goal for the sales now and in the future? And so this lets you think really big picture so that you can make sure that every day what you're productive with is actually moving you towards whatever your purpose in life is. So it goes like this. So your someday goal is, what's the one thing I want to do someday? Your 5-year goal is, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years? And then 1 year, what's the one thing I can do this year? Your monthly goal, what's the one thing I can do this month? Weekly, what's the one thing I can do this week? Daily, what's the one thing I can do today? And right now, what's the one thing I can do right now? Such that by doing, everything else would be easier and necessary. But you have to start with like someday and think really big. Like, where do I want to be in 10 plus years? What does my vision for the future look like? How many sales? Do I have a team? Really think as big as you can, because what you're doing right now, they talk about your life is basically a string of choices that you've made. And so every day when you make choices, are you making enough contacts to get to that someday goal? Or are you just making an arbitrary number that somebody told you to do because you heard that if I do this, then I can sell this many houses this year? But what do you want for the future? And I know that's hard to think about, especially if you're brand new, but that's the only way you can make sure that you're actually being productive to what matters most. So that's what this is all about, is like, you can wake up every day and you can prioritize things that are somebody else's one things. Right. Like if you think, servicing your clients, yes, it's important. Yes, absolutely. You want to take excellent care of them. But if your priority is to return a phone call to them before you do your one thing, then you are just achieving their goals and not your own.
Right. And that's how you do the runaround, is because you're running around doing their one thing for them. And we all know what happens when the plane's going down. You put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Right?
I know that's such I would say like it's an overused illustration of why you take care of yourself first. However, it's the best one, because it's like a life or death situation.
You can call that guy back, or you can go and call and do whatever and stuff. But in 6 months, that person is going to be no longer around, and you are going to have nothing in your pipeline. And they are not going to care that you don't have anything in your pipeline. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the question you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Questions from the web.
Question from the web. I have a newly listed home. We've had a handful of showings within the first few days, and it's been a week with nothing. I think the house might be slightly overpriced. Do you have any advice about the timing of price reduction and how it will be received? Does it really matter?
How it will be received by?
I'm guessing how it will be received by the
consumers.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to just give you, these are National Association of Realtors stats, and
this is right off the top of her head, guys. By the way, she doesn't have any paper in front of her.
National Association of Realtor stats is that if you have 10 showings and no offers, it's a price problem. If you have 2 weeks without any showings, it's a price problem. And that has been the stats for a long time.
Seems like it's a price problem.
And what the thing is I track this and follow this with all of our listings, and I found that it is accurate in a normal market. And even like when we were in the hot times, and we'd have like 30 offers. Well, it's because we had 300 showings, it really works out to be roughly, if you have 10 showings and no offers, you need to reduce the price. So they didn't say.
So if a week has gone by and you've had 6 showings and now you haven't had any showings yet, you don't necessarily drop the price because you haven't had the 10 showings. Is that what you're saying?
So sometimes I do recommend for sellers that it depends on what the feedback is. So if we list a property and I go into it and I think we're overpriced already, like I've explained to the sellers, but they really are determined to list at a different price. And then feedback starts rolling in that it's the price, but we haven't hit 10 showings.
Yeah.
But we've gone 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would still recommend a price reduction, because in a normal market, we should have probably had 10 showings in that time frame. If if we're not sure about like maybe
don't you want to do the price reduction too, like not just because that's the right thing to do there, but also just for long term. Like if you wait and don't reduce the price in those first 2 weeks and you sit there and the house sits there for 6 weeks and then you lower the price and it's been sitting on the market like that, they're like that now buyers could see this as a slight desperation. Well, it's been listed for a while. And blah, blah, blah.
You could also say that if somebody reduces the price in 2 weeks, well, they must be desperate to sell. I kind of don't care about the perception of the buyer. Don't misunderstand that. I think it matters, but I also think that if you get the price in a normal market, if you get the price into the sweet spot where it should be, you'll get an offer regardless.
Is it because it's a numbers game? So don't worry about what one buyer might think, because what we're trying to do is get it in front of as many people as we can. This isn't about personalities. Is that what you're getting?
Well, because yes, there's going to be people who are like, oh, they must be desperate now.
And when you say you don't care, it's like that's what you're talking
because
about.
if we got it into the right spot in this market,
it doesn't matter.
We're going to solicit an offer, at least one, potentially more than one, if we got into a sweet spot where it's like, ooh, now this looks like it's the best deal on the market.
Right.
And I don't mean underpriced. I just mean it's the best price, best condition house for what's available right now. Then you might get more than one offer. And so it doesn't really matter if one of those people thinks that, oh, it must be desperate, let's make an offer lower. Well, because the seller is still going to counter back with whatever they want. And if the buyer is serious, you'll still make it work.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
The buyer who wants the deal, well, they're going to look around for a deal. And if this is just a good priced home in a good neighborhood with a good condition, then they're going to get an offer regardless of the person looking for a good deal.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
But these numbers they always line up. So for example, we had a listing recently and we had like 20 showings and we had 2 offers. 10 showings, 1 offer. 10 showings, 1 offer. Now they didn't stick, right? The seller and buyer didn't sign and agree to a price, but the point is there was an offer. Then we had another 10 showings and we got another offer. So it really works out. Now, if you've got a house, a listing that has an unusual floor plan or unusual location or something like that, it might be more. You might need more showings to get the same results. So just knowing.
And if you did your listing presentation correctly, we always talk about setting expectations. Those expectations should have been set with the seller that, look, this is a quirky floor plan, or, the other comparables it's one of those prefab neighborhoods where all the houses are the same. And you guys, this house has never been updated, but the other ones have, right? All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those expectations should have been set from the beginning. So when it happens and you do have to lower the price, you've already kind of, they know where you're coming from on this because it's already been discussed.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if you've gone and hear me again, if you go 2 weeks with no showings, it is absolutely the price. And it probably needs a larger price reduction than if you've gone 10 showings and no offer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because that means nobody even wants to look at it.
Right.
Buyers are savvy, and I don't mean that they're smart.
Right, but they have access to lots of information.
They have access to lots of information. If no one's even coming to see it, it means that they're looking at the information and what you've presented, and they're saying, that is so far overpriced that I'm not even willing to spend my time to come look at it.
There's nothing about it that's making me go, well, maybe. Yeah. If they can't even say, well, maybe, then you guys aren't even in the same ballpark.
So then you need a larger price reduction, maybe like a 10% kind of price reduction. Maybe even more depending on the situation. So the other thing I'll say real quick is there's a cool tool in Showing Time. It's pretty nifty. You do have to pay extra for it, but it's you can see once you have a property listed, you can see what the other similar type homes in the area are doing. And what I mean is how many showings they've had in the first week, how many showings they had before they went under contract. And
that's a good barometer.
For sure. So I'll look at that too before I start offering pricing advice, because that stat that I gave you, that's a general stat. There are going to be areas where that might not be exact. Mm-hmm. So, but I can look at the Showing Time report and see Well, it took on average in this neighborhood, in this market that we're currently in, it took 20 showings to get to a contract. So then I can let the seller know.
Right. We're okay.
Well, and here's
Or
the other
we're not.
thing. Maybe if we're in week 1 and we've only had 2 showings, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, it might take us 10 weeks to have an offer if we're going at this pace.
Yep.
So how to make that happen faster for people who maybe are more motivated to get it sold quickly. They're like, oh, I don't have 10 weeks to wait. Well, then you can drop the price.
Yeah.
Because that will generate more buyers that have the ability to purchase.
Right. It's a bigger swath of people.
Yeah. So that's my 10 cents.
Okay.
Flow in. Flow in. Flow in.
Kat, you got a small win this week?
Well, first of all, I just said 10 cents instead of 2 cents. I don't think my mind is
It's worth even
it
more.
It was worth more. My small win. Did I say this one already that I bought little bins?
No. That's this week's project.
I think I said it at our office because we do small wins in the team too. So I just got this, like I'm on this app that it's relaxing me, and I watch other people.
It took us years to find. I bought Catherine an iPad last year.
I think it's like 2
years ago, and I bought it for her, and I said, you're not allowed to put your email or anything on this. Like, it can't be hooked up to your messages or anything. It's just to mess around on so that you can turn things off at night. And that iPad really just kind of sat there. We got used periodically and stuff, but over the last few weeks, something's happened, guys.
I found this app that you can just look at other people like wearing clothes. By the way, I don't think that this is like new.
It's not new, and it's certainly not cool. But
well, it's called LTK, and I mentioned it to my friend recently,
right?
And she's like, "Oh, LTK, like you're just getting on board with this." But anyways, it's a bunch of women who have too much money to spend, and they're putting on clothes and showing you how to, oh, look at this. This is a 10 out of 10. And anyways, it's relaxing to look through. But I found the most relaxing, which is this, and I don't remember her handle, but it's a woman who all of her reels and stuff are just organizing things. And it's like, and they're beautifully organized with all like white and tan stuff. So it looks even prettier.
You can get her over here up into that office spheres.
My office is organized. But anyways, I would consider myself an organized person, but I wanted.
You're the most.
Shut up.
organized person I've ever met in my life.
Which means I'm organized.
Uh-huh.
And anyways, though, I was like, I'm going to take control over one thing. And so we've got this downstairs half bath that has a little medicine cabinet, and it's organized in there. Like, it's not disorganized. There's all the things are in their place. But I was like, I'm going to get some little plastic bins.
She was inspired.
I was inspired. And so that's my small win, is I ordered like little bins that fit in there. And of course we have a 100-year-old house. So like nothing is the right size.
Yeah.
So I had to really search for some bins that fit. And then I ordered some new supplies to put in there so it looks all pretty. And I look forward to this weekend doing it.
She hasn't done it yet.
I haven't done it. We got the stuff coming in.
There. Yeah.
I'm creating a
like, look at this bug spray I got. Like, great. That's great.
It looks really cute. It's gonna look great.
And I don't really have a small win. I guess my small win is I did our theme.
Oh yeah.
So that's
you created music out of thin air.
Yeah, I created
small win.
That's a pretty good win, considering I'm not a musician.
Yeah.
And stuff. I've just, for those of you who don't know, I used to have a music rock and roll club many years ago, and I did live sound for all of the bands. And I grew up amongst musician friends for all through high school and college and stuff. So I've been around it a lot. So I know how to mix, and I know how, obviously I produce a show and stuff like that. So that was a fun project to do. And I was really excited when it all got finished. I think it sounds pretty good.
Yay, thank you.
So it's probably playing behind us right now. We'll do that later in post, the end part of it. So hope you guys enjoy the new theme song. It is an earworm, and I guarantee after a few episodes you'll be singing it in the afternoon. Hey guys, remember to rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps new listeners to find us. Send your questions from the web to onseekingthebest@gmail.com. Leave us a Spotify voicemail with your questions, and we'll play it on the show. All info is in the show notes. And for Kat and myself, thanks for listening, and we'll figure this all out next week.
Bye.
This has been a Think Live Be production.